In this video, I'd like to revisit the 500 block of Huron Avenue on the west side of the street. Today, that block looks like this. Nothing outstanding in this block today. But at one time, they had a couple things that were very outstanding in this block. Two magnificent buildings, bookends in this block. In the foreground, you see the Bear Block. And like I said in previous videos, when they refer to a building and then refer to the word block behind it, they're not referring to a block geographically, they're referring to the building. So the Bear Block was a building. The white block was a building, not the actual block itself. So when I refer to that in this video, that's what I'm referring to. We covered this block in video number 6 previously, but since that time I've come up with a couple of different things doing my research that I wasn't aware of. They were quite interesting. I thought I'd share them with you in this video today. Both the buildings in this block are quite ornate. In fact, if you take the domes away from the building in the background, the Maccabees building, actually, the one in the foreground, the Bear Block, is actually more ornate. And why would that be, both buildings in the same block? Well, this is what surprised me. The Bear Block was built for the Maccabees. It was going to be their building instead of the one that you see in the background. The building was erected by Charles Bear in 1890 to 1892 to be used by the Maccabee organization, which then had its national headquarters here, actually at the end of the block where the Maccabees building would eventually be built. Of course, it wasn't near as grand as you can see in this picture here, and it was called the Maccabees Temple. The information I had said the Maccabees refused the building, but they didn't give a reason why. They said no one knew why, it was just refused, and when I started this video, that's what I thought as well. I didn't know the answer, but while making this video and doing more research on it, going through some old archives, I found the real reason why it was refused. It wasn't completed on time. In this article, dated September of 1892, it says this: learning on the streets, N.S. Boynton, who was the head of the Maccabees at the time, who last year entered into a contract with Charles Bear for the construction of what is known as the Bear Block, had served notice of cancellation of the contract. Times reporter called on the major for information. Yes, sir, Mr. Boynton. Under the contract, the building was to be completed and ready for occupancy by the 1st of May last. The work has dragged slowly along until the present time, with no prospects of its completion before late in the winter, and possibly not before spring. I concluded to throw it up. Under my contract with Mr. Bear, it was optional with me whether I accepted the building or not after the 1st of May last, and as its completion seemed so far into the future, I made up my mind to cancel it. And you can read the rest, but basically it's saying that he doesn't really know what he's going to do for a building yet, but in the back of my mind, I think he knew exactly what he was going to do. Wouldn't be surprised if he had the plans already laid out for it. So Mr. Bear made it into a store and office building. The Maccabees took the structure a block north, which later became the Algonquin Hotel, and they built it just around their national headquarters they already had. In November of 1898, the Daily Times showed this: the new Maccabees Temple. The new temple, handsome structure to replace the old Maccabee building on Huron Avenue. It will consist of 4 stories and a noble dome 50 feet high. Unique in design, it will stand as a monument for the Great Order. And it was quite the building. You can see from this photograph that in between these 2 giant buildings, there was very little space, just enough room for about 3, maybe 4 of their small stores. Because of the Howard Furniture sign being so prominently displayed in most of the pictures we see of this building, we think that this was the Howard Furniture Store, or at least the first furniture store, but that's not the case. The first furniture store that was in there was the Bear Block Furniture Store, as you can see most of it from this signage here. Before the Bear Block and the Maccabees building was built, this block was barely a business block at all. Matter of fact, it was more residential. In this Sanborn map, you can see that there were two homes facing Huron Avenue, and maybe three if that third home has a very big front yard. And there was a little candy store in the corner, and that was it. On March 28, 1872, 5 days after the Port Huron Weekly Times was converted to a daily newspaper, the opening of a new furniture store in Port Huron was announced in a full-page Daily Times ad. And here's that ad. "Railroads and waterworks eclipsed," shouted the ad modestly, "by the new furniture store of James Howard and Company." The announcement went on to say that the store was stocked from cellar to garret, with parlor and chamber suites, wood and marble-topped tables, side and toilet stands, sideboards, bureaus, washstands, bedsteads, and chairs in endless varieties. We have a large stock of looking glasses, picture frames, moldings, rustic frames, and in fact, everything that is kept in a first-class furniture store. James Howard was bred and educated in Port Huron, and began life for himself as a sailor. He gradually worked his way upwards from a very humble position to that of captain of one of the Great Lake vessels, and for 18 years sailed the lakes as captain of his boat. On retiring from nautical pursuits, he began the manufacture and sale of furniture. James' father was an early lumber mill owner. Along with owning vast tracts of forest in the Port Huron area, James' older brother, Henry, followed the father in business. I'm sure most of you remember the Howard Mill at the mouth of Black River. That belonged to James' brother, Henry, but it was James Howard that founded the Howard Furniture Company. In 1872, when James Howard ran his very first ad on the front page of the paper, he had just moved into his store on Military Street. If you look at the bottom of this ad, it gives the exact location. It says it was next door to John Johnston and Company's bank. John Johnston and Company was a private bank, and it was located right on the corner of Water Street and Military Street, in this building right here. So the building next to it would have been where Howard Furniture would have opened his first store. But about a year later, in 1873, he moved, and he went to the other side of the bridge on the north side, on the 200 block of Huron Avenue on the east side of the street, between, it says Butler here, it'd be Grand River today, and Quay Street. You can also see from this advertisement here that he did other things besides normal furniture. General undertakers, coffins and coffin trimmings in every variety. In this advertisement here, he showed an actual picture of a coffin. After the 200 block of Huron Avenue, they then moved to the 500 block of Huron Avenue to the Bear Building. But it wasn't too long before they outgrew the Bear Building because they only had the one floor, and only part of the one floor at that. The first floor was divided up into two separate stores. So they then moved to Water Street. Now I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, didn't they burn in the fire when the Bear Block burned down? Yes, they did. But don't get ahead of yourselves. Let me tell you the rest of the story. So they were located in the White Block, or the White Building. And the reason they moved there is because they had the whole first floor as well as the basement. They were at this location for a number of years. But it was but a question of time when larger floor space was again needed. And at the right time, the Howard Furniture Company secured a lease of the entire ground floor of the Bear Block, together with the basement and the three upper floors. So they had the whole building leased. They didn't use the whole building. The parts of the building were leased out to other merchants, but they had the lease for the whole building. Because if they ever wanted to expand, they had that right. One of the tenants of this building was the Port Huron Guard. The Port Huron Guard was like the National Guard is today, and you can see the Port Huron Guard standing in front of the building in this photograph. They were dressed a little fancier than the National Guard is today. Right after Mr. Bear lost the deal with the Maccabees, the fourth floor was remodeled as an armory and was occupied by the Guard, at least until 1916, when the company left for service on the Mexican border. The hall was still considered the armory, and the state paid rent on it until 1920, when the armory was moved to their location on Broad Street, which is McMorran today. In 1893, the YMCA moved into the Bear Building. In new quarters, the YMCA nearly settled in their new rooms, large gymnasium, bathrooms, and parlors. And I'll let you read this. It says the gymnasium will be one of the largest, if not the largest, in the state, and it gives the dimensions. The bathroom will be complete in all details. The locker room will be large and commodious. The reading room and parlors have been nicely fitted up. It'll be a comfortable resort for the boys. Of course, this would have been before Howard Furniture leased the whole building. I thought some of the men watching this might get a kick out of this article here, referring to the fact that they have a public reception in their new quarters, the YMCA. The thing that interested me about this article was the basketball game. Basketball was fairly new back then, and so they're explaining it in this article about two teams, one being the businessmen's class and another the young men's class. The game calls for 7 players in each team, but this number was cut down to 5 last evening. 2 baskets, 15 inches in diameter, were seen, one in each end of the gymnasium, supported about 11 feet from the floor. As now it's 10 feet. And it was announced that these were to be used in the game. A ball 10 inches in diameter is used, and each time it is thrown in a basket, 3 points are scored for the team throwing it. No 3-point line, just every basket was a 3-pointer. Every foul made scores 1 point to the opposite team. This is done to eliminate rough play. A foul is made by pushing or grappling in any way an opposing player, by holding the ball against any part of the body, except the hands, by kicking the ball, or by running or walking with it. The game was played in 10-minute sections with 5-minute rest between. It was a lively tussle throughout, and the first 10 minutes failed to see the ball placed in either basket. The score at the close of the game stood 9-6. Prior to moving to the Bear Building, the YMCA was located actually in the First Baptist Church. They had rooms there. So this move would have been a big improvement. Another tenant of the Bear Building was the Port Huron Business College. And it was there when the Bear Building burned down, along with 2 other, the major ones, Howard Furniture, and another one that I didn't even know was there, and we'll discuss that one in a few minutes. So Howard Furniture was back in the Bear Building once again. And in 1918, they had their grand opening, or as they call it, a formal opening, on December the 3rd. But you notice something on the bottom is a little different. James Howard took a partner, and that partner was W.J. Heyman. Mr. Heyman wasn't an outsider. He was part of the staff at Howard Furniture. You can see in this full-page ad from 1911, on the left-hand side there, you can see Mr. Heyman. As we scroll up to the top, it says Howard Furniture will continue in business. The members like Port Huron. They had considered moving to California, according to this advertisement, but they decided they liked Port Huron better, and they had some discussions. They decided to stay there. What their connection was to California, I do not know. But the partnership was short-lived. Here in this advertisement from 1920, you can see it says $1 phonograph records for 75 cents, but at the bottom it said successors to Howard Heyman Company. So they had changed their name by 1920 and had put up a very large sign saying Howard Furniture. I assume that's Mr. Howard there in the foreground. What most people don't know is that Howard Furniture had their own factory that they built their furniture at on Water Street, To date, there's only one furniture factory in Port Huron. This factory is owned and operated by the new Howard Furniture Company on a factory-to-home plan. I've shown this photograph before, but I always thought it was the Howard Furniture trucks parked outside their warehouse, loading up furniture. But it turns out this was the factory, and that's what the trucks are doing there, picking it up from the factory. And this was on Water Street. If we go to a current view of this, you get an idea where it was located. It was located at 333 Water Street. Today there's nothing there but a parking lot. But at one time this was a Howard Furniture factory. Well, it looks like our 15 minutes is up for this video. So we didn't get to cover everything that we wanted to with the Howard Furniture Company, but we'll finish that in the next video. And also the Bear building and its demise, so we'll cover the fire in the next one, some things that we haven't seen before, and also a couple other things in the Bear block that we haven't seen before. So join me then.